Hi everyone, quite a few familiar faces, probably a handful that I don't know, which is excellent to see unfamiliar faces. It means we're getting wider and broader. This car park was a rebuild somewhere around 12-15 years ago, thereabouts. I've got a list here of our maintenance regime we've undertaken since construction, and looking through this list, yeah, nothing. It was installed and I pretty well guaranteed we haven't touched it since. I also haven't pre-prepped anything today. I feel like a magician. Nothing up this sleeve, nothing up this sleeve, no mirrors, no strings. So this is an honest demonstration of what a permeable paver does, installation does over a lifetime. I'm sure the presentations today will talk about the different ways in which to design permeable and whether it's just the footprint that their own footprint of rainfall they pick up or extra footprint, but it's pretty obvious, I'm sure most of the eyes around here would pick it up, that pretty much this inner car park area, all the bitumised areas drain to the central lower part of the car park, which is the permeable. So there's probably a threefold catchment enlargement over the pavers, so they take in 3 times as much water as what the rainfall is. So we've organised one of the water trucks to make it rain. But then I also have Richard here, who's volunteered to be more manual labour than myself. Volunteered, is that the right term, Richard? You were volunteered, that was the term. He's going to dig up, we're going to try and carefully dig up a couple of 1 metre square areas just to see what it looks like. One here which looks cleaner on surface, and like I said, that would be part of that train of water moving down here. The other one obviously in the lower low point, which from the sediment around it looks like it picks up some of the overflow and probably has been more heavily, been more hard worked. So if I say the magic words, we can make it rain. So I think that's a pretty clear demonstration we should have done some maintenance, which is really good because one of the speakers today I think is talking about maintenance. I have visited the site since this event was organised a couple of times. I haven't caught it during rainfall, but caught it like an hour after it's rained, and everything has been dry on the paver. And I don't think it would all have been overflowing, but yeah, it looks like most of that water's bypassed, and I still think that would be substantially heavier than a rainfall event, which I think is the other thing in fair game. I know that when permeable tape pavers of different types are tested directly after installation, and you're dropping, concrete trucks worth of water on them straight up when they're all clean and fresh, that they'll drink Adelaide's annual rainfall in an hour. I think it's more reasonable to sort of test it at a slower rate, which was what we were trying to do today. But I might, Richard, if you can help us dig up a couple of patches. It's a brick paver. These, to be perfectly honest, I don't recollect the brand name of these, but these work with a very narrow notch in several spots around the paver. And what we're seeing here is pretty typical of what I've previously seen, where, so this is my learnt knowledge through listening to others, not my physical experience knowledge through doing, but seeing the shadow of the bricks on the top fines, seeing this with sediment that's come through or washed through. So you can see here on this brick that you've got, so a normal house paver or brick paver wouldn't have this brick notch here, and this brick notch, when it's up against the next brick notch, so you can see from that relationship there that this ends up being a void, this ends up being a void,
This ends up being a void, and you can actually see that in the colour difference there versus here where this is brick to brick contact. This is where water has passed through and sediments come through.
So if this was just a normal asphalt car park, at some point in time we would need to come back and resheet it. Luke, test for you, how often do you need to resheet an asphalt car park? 20 years, okay. So we're 2/3 the way through a 20-year life cycle of this car park. Thank you, Luke. I trust you, your answer is correct. But when it comes to maintaining permeables, a lot of people are worried that you're going to have to dig up the entire formation level underneath, which would be a much more substantial exercise than compared to resheeting a car park. I think what this demonstrates is that the process of resheeting, for want of a term, or resetting a permeable pavement would be the removal of the bricks, the cleaning of the bricks, and literally skimming the fine sands off top, and a re-sprinkle, and then resetting everything again. I'm quite happy. I'm not qualified on a shovel, so I would suggest that maintenance wouldn't involve anything much more than taking that skim, and I'm pretty sure that from what we've seen, this is one that's been constructed with a geofabric. So in resetting this pavement, the larger stone underneath, my recollection of the design of this is we designed it as a detention system just to demonstrate to developers that permeable pavers can be used as detention for a development. So I think this would have been in the order of a 600 stone pavement, and it has a 90mm, 100mm pipe going out into that field gully over there, picking up the ag drains underneath the entire paved area, with that 90mm being the detaining mechanism. So in resetting this pavement, there's no touching of everything that's down deeper. That geofabric is absolutely clean. Yeah, so from what I've learnt from others, my suggested maintenance of this is only touching the top bits and cleaning up. And again, these bricks have got plenty of life back in them. I'm sure they'll last another round of 20 years. And someone thought they were going to break the bricks getting them out, but so far you haven't broken one yet. I've probably just jinxed you, but... So I guess digging up this spot in the low point, I guess what this probably tells us is that although it got quite dirty where the water actually washed sediment in, once you get to the bricks around the edge of that recent deposit of muck, it's pretty much the same picture as over there with regards to the coloration and how much sediment has actually got past the actual joints between the bricks. So I think both of these sort of demonstrate that, you know, if there's maintenance to be done from a declogging perspective, you're literally just talking about the brick depth range of focus, and that pretty much everything underneath that is safe to go for many years. Yeah, that's cool. So first question was how deep are the screenings underneath? And my recollection is that it was around 500 to 600 total formation depth, because we wanted it to include a storage volume. The second question is whether we used any sort of geogrid in the base formation to help stabilise it, and we didn't. And when we installed this is so the conversation about using geogrid is in my exposure to the subject is something that's come on in more recent years. I wasn't aware of any discussion of geogrid usage in the era in which we will put this one down. And it's a good question, because I'll cover it in my presentation as well. I reckon there's a little bit of sinkage in this location, and a little bit. And from the numerous projects I've been involved with where we've used permeable of different natures. So the question was about whether there'd been sinkage of pavers. The odd project, and there's no real rationale of reasoning to it, but the odd project has shown different levels of sinkage. And I think there's two factors to it. One is how well is confined at the edges for movement. But then I actually think the second element is workmanship. And if you've got a well thought through, well experienced contractor, or an experienced contractor, or one that's thinking about what they're doing, you're likely to get a good solution. I reckon this is pretty good for something which is 12 to 15 years old. Again, to my eye, there's a little bit of lip sinkage signs in a couple of locations, but not enough that you would go chase because they're a trip hazard or causing any sort of failure. And I have a really good failure in my presentation to show everyone.